Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host, Julia.
And I'm Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone. And we got a real doozy of a film for you.
Well, this is our first recording in 2023. And we decided to start the new year off with A Ticket to Paradise with George Clooney and Julia Roberts.
I'm sorry. I think your things are in my seat.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, come on.
You've got to be kidding me.
Excuse me, ma'am. I need to sit somewhere else. We used to be married.
Worst 19 years of my life.
We were only married for 5.
I'm counting the recovery.
In 4 days' time.
Our daughter's going to marry a guy she just met in Bali, millions of miles from home.
I just really want to kiss you. It's like I looked up for the first time and realized everything I ever wanted was right in front of me.
She's throwing her career away.
Just like her mother did. So I'm the only one who can stop her. She doesn't listen to him.
Oh, champagne.
Oh, 2, please.
Just leave the bottle. Thank you.
I won't let her throw her life away. We need to trick her into dumping him. As much as this will pain us both, we have to call a truce to make this work.
Just be in lockstep.
Hey! Did you make a pact to not murder each other until you murder me first?
We are here for you, my love.
Yes, we're in lockstep.
Yes.
Promise, no mean comments,
Pretty sure you don't win anything for eating the whole pig.
no arguing,
Get off.
no passive aggression.
What about aggressive aggression? Try to keep the snoring down.
I have a nasal strip.
It's a mystery you're still alone.
Mom, Dad, this is G'day.
I'm supposed to ask you today.
You learned that to make me look bad.
You don't need my help there.
Are you sure they're not sharks?
Come on, don't be a chicken.
We might be working with the sharks.
Come on.
Can't believe I got bit by a dolphin.
When I do
What's wrong
that,
with you?
he said pressure. He said
not
Georgia.
So what's the plan?
I say we steal the rings.
How do they look?
Disappointed. Do you think we're wrong?
You're not wrong.
Who are we to say that Lily doesn't know what's best for herself?
Oh my God, I cannot believe you.
What are you talking about?
She found the rings.
Where?
In Mom's bag.
I knew it.
What?
You clean up pretty good.
Here you go.
It's not for the faint of heart.
This is not his first rodeo.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Can we get something a little more age appropriate for these two?
Here we go. Which one?
There's only one.
I see 2. Oh, yeah.
Oh no. Dad, please stop doing that. Oh my God. I'm praying for an asteroid.
Together again for the 5th time, I think, because they get the 3 Oceans movies. Yeah, I think that's right. And Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which he directed, and she's in that. So I think this
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I saw
It's a real movie. Sam Rockwell, I think Drew Barrymore's in there. Yeah. It's not good. But yeah,
Probably why I never saw it.
yeah, they like making movies together. And, you know, they got a good rapport, and they both have beautiful smiles, and they waste their time in vehicles like this.
Yeah.
You're a fan of Julia Roberts, aren't you?
Yeah, I do like her.
I've never been a fan.
And I do like George Clooney.
I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fine together. They're great not together. I don't know.
This is one of those. They stopped making these kinds of movies a while ago, and I think one of the reasons why is I think Judd Apatow kind of took over the genre of like comedies. Like it became a lot of bro movies, a lot of movies with Jason Segel and Paul Rudd and Jonah Hill and Seth Rogen.
Like
and
stuff like a little more raunchy than this.
Yeah, so I think the idea of a romantic comedy, you know, I can't say that Knocked Up was the first of its kind, but I think that was kind of the beginning of the shift kind of changing. So then when movies became more earnest in their romanticism and wanting to do a, you know, boy meets girl sort of film, I feel like that kind of movie sort of fell by the wayside. And I know people said like Crazy Rich Asians was a comeback, and this film, everybody was said, oh, this film is the return of the romantic comedy. Only in the most generic, vanilla, prepackaged mainstream sense.
Yeah, only if every romantic comedy is totally predictable.
Yeah, you know, and I've never, that's one of the reasons, as you know, I've never liked this genre. I just feel like too many of these movies, the ending is inevitable. It's inevitable if you look at the poster, let alone if you watch the trailer. So Yeah, so let's talk about Ticket to Paradise from the director of Mamma Mia 2, folks.
Yes, let's get into it.
Yep.
So, all right. Our film opens up with George and Julia, who play David and Georgia Cotton. I'm just going to call them George and Julia because who cares about their names in the movie?
Yeah, they're basically playing
Themselves.
Yeah, or to be fair, they're the personas that they've established in movies like this. I mean, Clooney, he said that the last romantic comedy that he actually genuinely did, I don't know if this is true, I haven't looked at his filmography recently, but he states that the last genuine rom-com he ever did was One Fine Day. And I love that movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah. Ooh, you just perked up. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that one too.
One Fine Day, I have to say, if my sister and I were ever at home together, we would watch that movie and bake chocolate chip cookies. And I just have a lot of good memories.
You needed stronger parental guidance. You girls would be home alone.
No, I was
and
in
you'd watch
college.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like I'd be home from college. Not like as
I just picture these 11-year-old girls let's make cookies and watch One Fine Day. What kind of childhood did you have?
Well, that actually would have been fine. It's like a G-rated movie.
It's PG, to be fair. It's PG.
Okay, barely.
I think there's I think Clooney says damn once. That's
Yeah.
probably why it's rated PG.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so... there's nothing in that movie that's objectionable.
It's such a sweet,
I kind of
brisk,
wish we were
smart
talking
movie.
about that tonight.
I know, right? It's not a 4-star movie for me, but it's a strong 3 stars. I dig that film, and Michelle Pfeiffer is charming in it. It's a very good movie.
We should do that one. Okay, so
On to this one.
yeah, back
The
to
one we really want to talk about.
back to Ticket to Paradise. So George and Julia are,
As George and Julia.
Yeah, they're ex-husband and wife. They have one daughter named Lily, and she is graduating college to become a lawyer. And the opening is them both talking to her separately on the phone, I'm coming to your ceremony. I hope I'm not sitting next to her. I hope I'm not sitting next to him. And she lies to them and tells them they have seats far away. And in reality, they're sitting right next to each other. And it's ridiculous because they call her name and they are just standing on this balcony, making ridiculous comments I love you more, blah, blah, blah. Who did this at their kid's college graduation?
Well, I mean, this is sitcom writing top to bottom. And I got to say, from the first scene to the last, Clooney and Roberts, they have got a good rapport. They do. And you see it in interviews. They clearly like each other. They clearly have good natural chemistry. So the rapport is good. The material's bad. The script is bad. I don't think Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis can make this work. Even if it was a drama, it would be even more insufferable. But the characters are so dysfunctional. You wonder, how do they ever work as a couple? That's one of the problems I have.
Yeah, there's a lot of snark and just genuine rudeness between the two of them that you're okay, did you ever co-parent together? Because they technically were married for 5 years and then divorced, so they have a young daughter, and they just are at each other I don't know what, she's 25 now or something, and for all these years, for 19 years, they've been fighting.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I really don't. I mean, look, very different movie that I've mentioned a few times on this show, The War of the Roses. It not only are there the flashbacks that establish the Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner characters, how they ended up, why they're together, but even in the present sense of that story, where we're seeing, the marriage fall apart and how they're at each other's throats in some cases, literally, we do get a sense of they loved each other, and they're, we could see it still there even as it's falling apart. In this case, it's how did these two?
Yeah, there's so much disdain.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's almost like they're fighting against the chemistry, which is really, I don't know if that's really the way you do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the beginning of, I hate that I'm pulling from these movies because I don't like these movies either, but Pretty Woman and Runaway Bride, I mean, even that kind of prickly the initial scenes that Richard Gere has with Julia Roberts in those movies, particularly Runaway Bride, you need something like that. in this case, like, these two hate each other so much, you kind of like, well, let's go back to the daughter, who at least is pleasant and interesting.
Right.
And we don't have these movie stars that we're predisposed to like playing these characters we're predisposed to hate.
Okay, so they go to the airport to take Lily. Her and her best friend, Ren, are headed off to Bali for their, I don't know, graduation, vacation.
We got to talk more about Ren because this character is strange. Like, no, like she's played by Billie Lourd very well. Billie Lourd, of course, is the daughter of the late great Carrie Fisher. And Billie Lourd is good. She's stood out in a couple things. But yeah, the character becomes a plot device that the film sort of forgets about. It's very strange because initially she's there. Okay, like you need her as
She's the fun friend, the one who gets Lily out of her shell.
we need Lily. Lily needs somebody to talk to.
Right.
So at least she's a plot device. But then as the character is established that Ren's a bit of a hot mess. So you think the movie's going to do something with it, and when we get to it, we'll get to it. There's a scene where you think like, oh, this is about to get really sordid, and the movie completely avoids that, which I thought was the one surprising thing about the movie. But at some point, it's almost like the character sort of disappears from this movie. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Okay, so we go to Bali with Lily and Ren, and they're in the ocean snorkeling, right? They're swimming around. They pop up out of the water and realize what their tour, like their their boat just left them.
It's so dumb. I mean, look, there's a movie called Open Water, all right, where it treats this as a horror film. It's two divers. They go diving, and they come back up. Their boat is gone because of a miscount, and then they're left for the sharks to eat them. That's a horror film. That made sense, and it actually establishes how that could happen. In this case, it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, how deep were they diving?
I mean, okay, no, they were snorkeling, so they're not even diving.
Yeah, so like they don't see the little snorkels poking up. It's so ridiculous.
So they just start swimming, and they can see land, but it's obviously far. And then a boat comes around, and they're like, "Oh, we're here! Yay, save us!" And Lily, gets out of the water onto the boat. And there's this Balinese guy named G'day, and it is like fireworks, love at first sight, but it's almost like uncomfortable because the way she's looking at him, she's just like, she can't even breathe. It's very, what did you think about that?
I forgot momentarily that this was a George Clooney, Julia Roberts film, and I'm thinking like, this is a horror film because... See, what happens is this company... No. This company, they're like, okay, here's what we do, all right? Like, we get these actors on this boat. I'm going to get these two, like, rich tourists, and then we abandon them, right, when they're snorkeling. And then
you did think this was like...
We have, like, the ringer show up who's, like, really handsome. And he's like, you're so beautiful. You should never close your eyes, even when you're asleep.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
you get him on the boat, right? And then you rewind him and you dye him. And the next morning they wake up in a bathtub full of ice and their kidneys are gone.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. As we were watching it, he was telling me that he thought, I'm like, what, you think this guy is a human trafficker? I mean...
It would make more sense. I mean, it would explain the contrivance with the snorkeling boat, right? I was rooting for the movie to get dark because I'm like, because otherwise, like, what are we doing here? Like, we might as well just fast forward to the last scene and they lived happily ever after because that's the kind of fairy tale this movie is. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no human trafficking.
Yeah, there's no dark subplot or plot at all to this movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Lily and G'day end up spending the night together, and it's hilarious because she wakes up and she like walks out. She walks out of this, I don't know, beach house. It's like open air, and it's just like staring at, the beautiful scenery, and sees that G'day is a seaweed farmer.
To the movie's credit, I've never seen that in a movie before.
No. And for a
for good reason.
For a second, I was like, is that even real? But okay, like, people do buy those dried seaweed snacks.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so
very good, Jules.
I'm sure this is a real thing. I did not look into it myself. But it's like, she goes out there. So G'day is farming his seaweed. And she's just like smitten, okay? And then she's like, so you're a seaweed farmer. Like, how does this work? And he's like, oh, we just got a Whole Foods contract. I'm like, what? I mean, everything is lining up for this guy. I mean, things are going so great. Living in paradise, farming seaweed, then doing whatever the heck you want on this beautiful island, and you have a Whole Foods contract. So,
Well, I mean, what about Lily?
Not a problem.
I mean, it's coming up all jackpot for Lily. I mean, come on, she's hooked up with a seaweed farmer with a Whole Foods contract. I mean, this is. It doesn't get much better than this.
Yeah, it doesn't get so much so that a month later, her parents get an email. I'm going to marry G'day. Come to Bali.
Yeah.
So back to the real movie of George and Julia.
Yeah, back to more sitcom bantering where they're fighting, and it's what you said though. The dialogue is prickly. It's really not that funny. It's more it's caustic.
Yeah.
It's more, it reminds me of like another film where I wanted going in, and I like the actors a little more. Going in, I really wanted to like the film, but the movie itself was so hostile. It was The Breakup with Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston. Remember, it was like 2 hours of them fighting. Remember how much fun that was?
Yeah. I don't enjoy movies like that because I'm like, I don't know. I mean...
There's also one that reminded me, I remember when The Breakup came out, it reminded me of a movie that came out like a decade earlier. It was with Bruce Willis and Michelle Pfeiffer called The Story of Us.
Yeah.
And look, like I'm okay with movies about love not working out. I mean, I was just thinking about this today. One of my favorite films of the last 20 years is a film with Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. It's called Blue Valentine.
Oh yeah.
I love that movie, and that movie is not happy.
No.
But you know me, I don't like happy love stories anyway. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, look, it's okay movie if you're gonna do this kind of a film, but at least make it funny. At least don't make it feel like some. I mean, the movie is so visually glossy. It never feels real. There's never anybody in there to give a sense of reality to this. I mean, it always feels. I mean, it feels like a trailer for itself, or like at the very least, like a plane commercial, or like a tourism spotlight for Bali. And it turns out it wasn't even shot in Bali.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so George and Julia end up on the same airplane going to Bali at the same time, and they kind of act like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? And
lots of shenanigans about seats. It's that whole scene from the trailer where the stewardess gets involved and the lady in the middle has
flight attendant, honey.
Oh, so sorry, flight attendant.
Okay, but how do you like that Julia's boyfriend is the pilot of this plane?
Right, and that's a weird subplot because, man, the movie that was promising, and you don't love the character enough, you don't hate the character enough. The guy he's too like lukewarm.
Well, okay, so her boyfriend is Paul. He's played by Lucas Bravo from Emily in Paris.
Oh, of course you know that.
And in Emily in Paris, he is very charming, and it's a really great character, actually. This character is like the worst because all he does the whole time is try to agree with her, and he'll say something, she'll contradict him, and then he'll be like, oh yeah, never mind. I was thinking the same thing as you were, like the entire time. So it's like he's supposed to be the opposite of Clooney's character, but it's just like, okay, this guy has no balls.
Wow. Well, a smarter movie would have made him the villain, or at least a genuine, rival to Clooney's character. But the film doesn't do anything with him that's interesting. It's really strange because he makes such a strong entrance. It's amusing that he is so ridiculously smitten with Julia Roberts, but it's to a point where it's like, did she brainwash him? Because it is insane how loyal. I mean, it's like puppy dog devotion to her. It's really weird, listeners. If you see this movie, I mean, look at this character. I mean, like, it's almost like, it's like the reverse. It's like if he was in Don't Worry, Darling, and he was like stuck in that world, the Olivia Wilde world. Like it's that kind of like, it's almost like he's a Stepford husband. He's a Stepford husband. Yeah. It's bizarre. And yeah, like you go, okay, like great. Clooney has someone he could play off of. It's a funny contrast. He's young, he's handsome, and and he's so ridiculously in love with everything that he can't stand about Julia Roberts. Great. And yeah, the film just drags him along. He has him all these scenes, and you're waiting for the bottom to fall out. He's having an affair on her. He's not real, or it's a sham, like something. No. No.
He's just too agreeable. That's his biggest fault.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that's not a character. That's not interesting.
All right. So finally, Clooney and Roberts, they decide they are going to pretend to be all for the wedding, but they are basically planning a Trojan horse situation. So they're going to like go in and just be like all positive, like, oh yeah, honey, we're totally for this. And I'm like, you know what? As a parent, this is such terrible parenting. Like, you're going to go, you get an email, first of all. Like, if our daughter sent me an email from Bali, I'd be writing back and being like, what the hell is happening right now? I'm not going to be like pretending that I'm all for something I'm not for. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the plot is, it's kind of, look, I'm not saying that she hasn't been in a few good movies or that she's never given a good performance. That's not fair. It's true. Julia Roberts has done good movies. She's given good performances. I'm kind of appalled that she's in this movie because it's such an obvious rewrite of My Best Friend's Wedding.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
Let me talk about that for a minute because this is one of the things I like about that movie so much. They shot the film and originally they looked at it and they said, this film doesn't work. We might have to shelve it. They did a test screening of it. It was a disaster. The test screening said, we hate Julia Roberts in this movie. I don't want to see this. I'm not going to recommend this to anybody. So the director, P.J. Hogan, looked at it and said, you know what? It doesn't work. Weird. But what we have is Rupert Everett, and the audience likes him. He's the only thing the audience can agree on. We love Rupert Everett. So let's go back in there. Let's give him more scenes. Let's build up his character. And in the end, instead of having her end up with Dylan McDermott, which is what they did, those idiots, or is it, Dylan McDermott or
Dermot
Mulroney?
We do this
I actually
every
did that.
time.
There's an SNL skit about that. I can't believe I actually did it. So it's Dermot Mulroney.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, my apologies to Dylan McDermott and Dermot Mulroney. Oh, man. So anyway, Dermot Mulroney is the love interest in that movie. And originally the film ended where he ends up with Julia Roberts. And everyone's like, that's awful. Because the movie's about how she goes to ruin the wedding. And by the way, like, were we supposed to hate Cameron Diaz in that movie? Because, she's adorable in that film. But
she's adorable.
But yeah, and so it was a real problem. So anyway, they went and
she's creme brulee. Of course you're not going to hate creme brulee.
Of course. No, I by the way, whenever I see that film, I'm seeing it for Cameron Diaz and for Rupert Everett. But anyway, the director said, like, let's try that. So they bulked up Rupert's scenes and they just changed the ending where instead of ending up with Dermot Mulroney, they had it where she ends up with her best friend as like a consolation prize. It's kind of a bittersweet ending, and people love the film. And suddenly the film worked because you had a character from the outside who can talk about how awful Julia Roberts was. Originally, Rupert was barely in the film, but because not only is he so dazzling and so good in that film. I mean, it's a terrific performance. It's not just that he's funny. He's great in that movie.
We should be talking about that movie.
We should be talking about good films. What I'm trying to say, listeners, forgive me. For one thing, this movie is an obvious ripoff of a much better film. It's a very similar premise. And this film needed a Rupert Everett, whether it's the gay best friend or just somebody to comment how awful all of this is.
Yeah.
How awful the daughter is.
I mean, Ren could have been that person.
Yeah, and the movie blows it because there's a scene somewhere in the middle of the second act where Ren is at a bar by herself and she has a long night talk with Clooney. And you think, okay, this is where it's finally going to get dark. You know me, I'm like, make it dark.
You're like, yes.
Well, she's going to get drunk with him and sleep with him, and it's going to be weird, and it's going to like bring all these complications. No, she has this, and I gotta say, like, I was really surprised the movie did this. They have this really thoughtful conversation. He treats her like the best friend to his daughter that she is, and that's it. I was like, okay, that's actually a pretty well written scene, and I gotta say, like, considering how they make this character up to like to be nothing but trouble, it was kind of nice that they actually did something thoughtful with her.
Yeah, that they made George not a total creep.
But at the same time, again, it's like the movie is just, it's on a conveyor belt. Yeah. Everything is
That's
just
true.
Everything is pre-packaged in this thing. There's no surprises, and there's nobody, it's not just Rupert Everett. Look, let's talk about the film this guy did prior. Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. Boy, what a great title. In the Mamma Mia 2, that movie.
Oh, the director.
The director, like, what he did in that movie was like, it's insufferable for about an hour and 15 minutes, and then a helicopter comes. Cher enters the movie via helicopter, and Cher kills in that movie. Cher is so good in that film. The movie like suddenly has a pulse. And then Andy Garcia starts singing Fernando, and you're like, oh my God, this is suddenly like a fun movie. This movie needed that. Like it has these set
needed
pieces.
A helicopter to like drop Brad Pitt into the movie.
Oh
to
my
give
gosh,
it some life.
The way he saved the Lost City, yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
It needed a Cher, it needed a Rupert, it needed somebody to like kind of dive bomb this movie and just like give it like a real kick in the teeth, and it never happens.
Yeah, because right now we're at the point where, okay, so they're going to do this Trojan horse situation. George meets with G'day and tells him that Lily's going to get bored with you. Like, you might think this is great now, but what about in 5 years? What about in 10 years? You know, it's like giving him all these doubts. Okay, and the Trojan horse situation is they are going to steal their rings, which is like...
Yeah,
okay.
George and Julia are going to try to sabotage the wedding by stealing the rings and bringing. And you know, listeners, if you've seen this movie, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the way it portrays Bali. I mean, I've never been there, so I can't vouch for the film's authenticity. Apparently, the actor who plays G'day is from Bali. But like, I mean, it feels like, I mean, the movie apparently was shot in a resort. It feels like it was shot in a resort. It doesn't feel culturally interested. It doesn't feel like it really wants to, it just wants to give us like the tourism hotel experience of what this culture is. It's giving us a lot of scenes of the outsiders just being really condescending. And the thing with Clooney, like it should have some kick to it, because Clooney's right. Like, yeah, what are you doing, man? You don't know this girl.
Yeah, you've known her for a month.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's getting all moony-eyed at you and the beauty of the country, and like, you know, and I definitely didn't even feel it with these actors, by the way. But in any case, like, what he's saying is reasonable. G'day, there's something, you know, I mean, he's a one-note character, so you are kind of waiting for some kind of interesting bottom to fall out. Yeah, nothing really develops.
No.
Nothing.
No. Now, they do have this saying there that they keep saying, like, it has to be the right place, the right time, and the right circumstance. And so... that's how you know that your relationship is gonna go the distance, okay? And because the rings were taken and the rings aren't there at the ceremony or pre-ceremony or whatever, they have to have the rings for the circumstances to be right. So it looks like I mean, they make such a big deal about it, but then they're like, well, I guess we'll just get new rings. Like, okay. You would think this, if that's their saying and the rings are going to make it so it's not the right circumstance, you would think they would just call this whole thing off, and they don't.
There's no suspense, because to go back to My Best Friend's Wedding, the third act is full of surprises, because, you know, Julia Roberts is working so hard to ruin the marriage.
Yeah, sabotage everything.
Yeah, between
Dermot.
Dermot Mulroney and Cameron Diaz. And, you know, again, like, it's a very strange thing, because you don't like Julia Roberts in that film. You really like Cameron Diaz. You like Dermot. But at the same time, like, it's, you know, you don't know how it's going to end up. And I do find the ending, even though, you know, it's...
Yeah, you really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's, and you know, and the chips are being stacked. And, yeah, in this movie, it just, you know, again, like, the thing with the rings ends up being a non-issue. The thing about the cultural differences ends up being a non-issue.
I mean, this family, G'day's family, is so welcoming to
absurdly so.
Yeah, like over the top. And you're like, okay.
These wealthy Americans are just barging into their country, their culture, their seaweed enterprises. I mean, aren't they a little suspicious?
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I mean, what is this girl going to offer?
I have no idea.
Let alone, I mean, as a wife, I mean, she's what, 19, and then.
Well, no, I mean, she's older because she's graduating with her law degree. So
okay, so she's 23.
She's supposed to like
25.
She's supposed to be going to like be a working lawyer at a law firm, and she just dumps all that and is like, I'm staying in Bali with this seaweed farmer, which in all honesty, like, does sound better. But
Does it?
yeah, I mean, being a lawyer sounds super stressful.
So what is she going to do in Bali?
Yeah, that's the thing. I have no idea. Maybe she's also going to farm seaweed. Who knows? It's crazy.
Do you think seaweed farmers need a lawyer?
Maybe their contract with Whole Foods, goes south and Whole Foods tries to screw them over and she makes it, she figures it out for them.
That's too dark for this movie.
That's the sequel that's never going to happen.
Yeah. Like everything we're talking about, like this film was designed not to offend everyone's grandmother.
Right. Okay, well, right after they don't have the rings, they decide to go swimming with dolphins.
Man. If this movie has an irredeemable moment, it's the scene where George Clooney gets
bit
in the crotch, by a dolphin.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
Okay, so that happens.
So stupid.
Clooney and Roberts go seaweed farming together.
Clooney, you're in Syriana. Julia Roberts, you were in Michael Collins. Didn't they read the scripts and this is beneath us. This is degrading.
Well,
what are they doing?
Well, then they fight over who can farm the most seaweed at the same time. I mean,
oh my god! And they're like tossing seaweed around like willy nilly, and and they're just watching from the distance, like, oh, ha ha ha! Like, no, this is their industry.
Yeah, I know. Like, hello, I don't know how
these awful Americans are just bulldozing their way. They're just like throwing the seaweed around like it's a joke. Like, man.
Okay, then there's a crazy scene now. Forgive me, I don't know if this is like a Balinese thing, but G'day has to get his teeth filed.
Yeah, I assume it's cultural, but at the same time, no. I mean, you're right. Like, it's whether it's authentic or not, the movie uses it as a gimmick and a joke.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
This movie cares about Bali. Like, was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom set in Bali?
No.
It wasn't?
I don't think so.
It might have been.
What? You think?
I'm making a point about that film famously had a very, offensive depiction of indigenous people over there. They're eating monkey brains, they're enslaving children, they're worshiping gods. Like, it was, So what I'm saying is, this movie is feeding into that very American need to make a foreign culture very alien and exotic, as opposed to emotionally authentic, and as opposed to dealing with it in a way that's layered and interesting.
No, it takes place. They crash over the Himalayas and they end up in India.
India, forgive me, it was India. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, so after G'day gets his teeth filed, they go into town, I guess, and play beer pong. So I don't know. That scene is wild. It's just George and Julia getting drunk together.
Well, as I said, this movie doesn't have Cher, so it's got to deal with George and Julia acting all goofy. I guess the beer pong thing works, but then there's a song and dance number, which I guess is like the equivalent of like, what's the song they sing in My Best Friend's Wedding?
Yeah.
You should know it.
Don't sing it.
Trying to say a little prayer for you.
Say a little prayer.
I had to sing a few bars of it in my head. So the equivalent of that is they play a song. I think it's
Is it House of Pain?
Yeah, House of Pain. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I saw them in concert. Those guys are awesome. So yeah,
Jump around. Is that the one they're
That's
doing?
it. Yeah. But the thing, it made me wonder, like, are Julia and George really that bad at dancing, do you think? And I think they are.
Yes,
Because
they probably are.
They kind of sacrificed their education to be actors, so they didn't go to prom. They can't dance. They've never done musicals before.
Oh, because going to prom would make them good dancers.
Well, I mean, that would at least give them an opportunity to dance. Yeah, there's no way those two have ever danced. But there's probably like, okay, you guys are like, show me how you dance. Oh yeah, we're good.
That's
we're
hilarious.
good. We don't need to choreograph this. You two are terrible.
That's hilarious.
This works.
Okay, well, shortly after this, Paul shows up, and
you think like, ooh, things are about to get complicated. Not really.
Not really.
No.
I mean, it's whatever. But so Clooney had been researching different places nearby, and he wants to go to this like cursed cave because he reads that any couple that goes there, their relationship is like doomed. So he wants to take Lily and G'day there. And what happens is G'day and Lily are like, "What? We don't want to go there." And he's like, "Let's leave. Let's not go into this cave." So they do an about face and leave, and Paul and Julia go into this cave, and he proposes to her, and then he gets bit by a snake.
Ugh.
Just
The indignities just never end in this film.
so he spends most of the rest of the movie in the hospital.
Yeah.
Because I think the movie is like, we need to get rid of this guy.
Oh, we don't know what to do with this guy.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought it was a ripe comic opportunity to have him out of the picture. But again, it's like, we don't hate him enough. We don't love him enough. His only function is to fawn over Julia Roberts, which, anybody, I guess any male would do naturally, but like, that's not a character.
Yeah. So the four of
To
them...
make him a stalker would be more interesting, right? Seriously. Because he's a pilot, right? Wouldn't it be funny if like he went home and there's just like a giant portrait of Julia Roberts that he painted and there's like pictures of her everywhere? Like that would be funny. Like he's like her secret stalker boyfriend. Like seriously, that's a motivation.
How do you have a boyfriend who's also a stalker?
Well, he's like, that's why he became a pilot so he could fly around the world and follow her. He like went to flight school. So
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that would be funny. But now Paul is in the hospital. So George and Julia, Lily and G'day, they take the boat and they go to another part of the island. Of course, Clooney is supposed to like tie the boat up, but he doesn't. It floats away. They end up getting stranded overnight. There's a rainstorm. Lily finds the rings, so she's ticked at her parents, and
everything, and listeners, everything happens like clockwork.
Yep.
It's so like, this happens, then this happens, so then this happens. It's like, oh my gosh, it feels like you can hear the pen as the screenwriters just scratching off
Just
the
like,
boxes, like,
check,
yep, okay, finds the
cha-ching.
rings. There's some old chemistry that the leads find. There's a fight. There's a rainstorm. Like everything.
Okay, but George and Julia in the rain discuss the demise of their relationship, and so then we kind of find out why it didn't work out. And listeners, I'm like annoyed by the reason, because they apparently lived in this great lake house. Okay. And then they have Lily. And so Julia's sitting there talking about like, everyone always, I blamed you and I told everyone it was your fault that our relationship didn't work out. But really it was me. I was loving being a mom, but I just knew that if I, stayed, that I would lose myself. And that was the lie. And now it's too late for me or something. And I'm like, oh, and then their house ended up burning down. So she felt trapped. She felt like she was losing her identity, and then their house burns down, and then they get divorced. Like, I'm sorry, what?
It's bad screenwriting. I wonder if like the screenwriter's like, this worked for Manchester by the Sea, so let's do that.
Yeah, like, the whole like mom losing herself in the relationship, like I know that is
and then the house burns down. And It's a symbol for their relationship.
Like I know that's a common feeling. But like,
is that how people feel when their houses burn down?
No.
Our marriage went too up in flames.
No. I think it's common for moms of young children to sometimes feel that way because it's just like a very intense period of time. But like, I don't know. It seems so silly that like, and then what? Were they always this angry at each other? That's the thing that doesn't really make sense. Like, they hate each other, but like she's now saying that she didn't really hate him. She was just scared for herself. It just like, do you see how it just doesn't like add up?
It does not, no.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, anyway, that is the big revelation between the two of them, and and I agree with you. It feels like it's from another movie.
Yeah.
And as we keep saying, why can't we get to the bottom of why there's so much animosity between the two of them?
Yeah.
There should be something more than this one incident. It's like, okay, because as you said, like, is that when it turned and suddenly they can't not fight with each other?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Why? Because this movie, again, like it's supposed to be funny, haha, sitcom banter, but like these are two very, again, it's the problem of like the story of us. These are two people you came to see and you really like them, and they won't stop nattering at each other. And after a while, like it gets tiresome, to say the least.
And I think there's something about like, oh, we bought this house and we kind of bit off more than we could chew and then it burned down. Okay, like I get it. Like life throws people crazy situations, but it still doesn't account for how much they despise each other.
By the way, a house burning down, it's such a serious thing for a movie like this, as frivolous as this.
Yeah.
The fact that she has this doting airline pilot, like why not make it like again, like the movie doesn't want to deal with anything serious. Like why not make it about infidelity? Why not make it about maybe he drinks too much? Like what, just,
yeah, there really doesn't seem to be any.
Does he have an anger issue? Yeah, like
yeah.
like did she marry a guy who's just like angry at his parent? Like, something to justify why they are the way they are now. And the fire thing, like if anything, it feels more of a poetic touch.
Yeah.
Their house went up in flames, and so did their relationship. Like, okay, Ticket to Paradise.
Well, then we like skip over to G'day and Lily, and he like confesses that he knew about the rings, and she's like, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, well, your dad was asking me, like, are you going to be here in 5-10 years? Like, am I enough for you? And you know what she says? She's like, I am sitting in the most beautiful place on earth, under the moon, and there's a waterfall, and all I can look at is you. Oh, brother. Come on.
Does this happen every time she goes on vacation? I'm here in Barbados, and it's spring break, and you have your shirt off, and all I can do is stare at your abs. I'm here at Epcot Center, and there's big balls in front of us, and all I can do is stare at you, Chet, with your name on your uniform because you run the rides.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. It's just, I don't know.
I'm here at the biggest bowl of twine in Minnesota, and all I can do is look at you, Skip. Like, does this happen every time she goes anywhere? Because, yeah, it's beautiful, but I mean, for one thing, we keep, as I keep saying, like, I've never been to Bali. I suspect Bali in real life is probably nothing like this movie. I'm just going to say it. And because this film obviously was shot in an Australian resort, as we know from our research, and because this is a very rich girl who's probably had all sorts of experiences, like really, like this is it for her.
Yeah, she goes, this is forever. So she says.
A smarter movie would have dealt with the fact that, well, maybe this impulsive attitude is something reflective of why her parents got married. Yeah. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, because they were impulsive.
There you go.
And now she's being impulsive, but
And then, again, a smarter movie, she burns down the seaweed.
Oh.
She's like outside smoking, so the seaweed is like, it's like...
Okay, but the seaweed farm is in the water. What, she's burning down the dried seaweed?
Think how cool that would look visually. Yeah, there's just like, there's all this seaweed up in flames.
He's like, my food contract
has been
canceled because of you.
Smells like burning seaweed. Oh man, Whole Foods is not gonna like this.
Yeah, no, they canceled their contract. And then she's like, wait, but I'm a lawyer. I'll get it back for you.
And he's like, I wish I never met you.
Yeah, I wish.
Please go back to the mainland.
I wish I had
weirdo.
never rescued you, or I had trafficked you. No, just kidding. And that just got darker.
Next time, I'm gonna take your kitties.
Oh man. Okay, so then there's like this really awkward George and Julia sunrise kiss, and then they like kiss, and then they freak out. They're like, no, this isn't gonna work. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is so, like, you guys are the weirdest.
I don't get it. Yeah, it almost feels like, are they miscast? Because, I mean, I guess, you would buy it if it was two people who you really, it's again, everything is so pre-packaged and it's obviously they gotta end up together. But yeah, it feels, it's weird that it's weird for them.
Yeah, it is weird that it's weird for them.
But then it gets even worse with the final scene.
Okay, so they get a ride back, and it ends up being the lady from the airplane who's like driving one of them back on this little.
She's a scene stealer, whoever
Yeah.
she is. She steals her few minutes of this movie. I got to hand it to her. The one time I laughed in this movie because she drops an F-bomb like, oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you. Somebody wanted to give this movie an edge. And then she disappears.
All right, so they make up with Lily. There's a wedding ceremony, and then G'day says he won't marry Lily until he has her parents' blessing. And then, of course, George gives it to him, even though, quote, you don't need our blessing. All you need is each other. And then, Lily finds her dad out on the beach, and that's where she tells him, I belong here. And it's just like, okay. Do you, Lily? Do you really?
I mean, you've been here a week, and I'm glad you're enjoying it, but it's really more of a vacation.
Yeah. She's been here a month, so okay.
It's like, what are you going to do here? How have you contributed to this way of life? How have you contributed to the people of Bali? I mean, are you going to be a lawyer out here? Do you know anything about seaweed? Do you know your fiance's last name? Like,
can you pronounce it? Okay, so finally Julia rejects Paul, finally, after stringing him along.
and you don't know if it's like, is this a good thing or, it's so weird. Like, I was so indifferent about that.
Yeah, I
The
was
movie
like, she
drags
could
him
marry
along for
him,
so
she could not
long.
marry him. I don't really care. Okay, then the parents, George and Julia, are leaving on the boat, and they're going away. And he was like, yeah, I could really see you spending a lot of time here. And then she says something that I guess she said when they got the lake house. She's like, why save the good stuff for later? And they just kind of look at each other, and it's kind of like, yeah, like what? Yeah. Oh. And then they jump off the boat in a freeze frame, and that's the end.
Why save the good stuff for later? I mean, that's something you'd read in a Hallmark card, but for them, it's like this big epiphany.
Yeah, like, oh, we're just going to dump our entire lives and all move to Bali now? On a whim? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I did want to talk about, like, the horrible things that this movie says about Julia Roberts' appearance. There are a couple times where they make fun of her.
Yeah.
And she's basically called, like, horse face. And then Clooney makes fun of, like, her crooked nose. And I'm like, what is up with this film?
I mean, shouldn't they at least make it even Steven and make fun of how old he is?
No, they
or-
do not make fun of George Clooney
Or like
at
make
all.
fun of his gray hair,
No.
or make fun of the fact that he's actually considerably older than everybody else in the cast. Like
No.
no, like they don't. Yeah, it is strange.
No, apparently George Clooney is a silver fox and can do no wrong, and
Yeah.
and Julia Roberts is an old hag. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very strange. I don't get it. Maybe it speaks to her confidence. It's like, well, I've been People Magazine's most beautiful woman for so many years. Like they know it's all a joke. But like it's odd. I agree with you. It feels mean spirited. It doesn't feel
It did feel
earned.
mean spirited. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I didn't appreciate that. Like, it just felt really, even for a movie that like is all about insults between these two people, that felt really personal.
My preferred ending for the film is only just a few seconds after we see the freeze frame. We don't, because the thing is, like, you get the freeze frame where they're jumping off the boats and then it's cut to black. That's fine. But instead of the end credits rolling and like Ain't No Mountain High Enough playing, I want to hear the audio of the dolphins ascending on Clooney and Julia Roberts and basically massacring them. So that's like the last thing they ever do is jump into the water.
They get murdered by dolphins.
Yeah, that's my preferred ending to this movie. I hate this movie so much. I'm gonna give it 1 star because it's beautifully shot, and the music's good. That's it. I like I'll say quickly, I like the music score because most romantic comedies, they have these terrible scores like do 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 do. Like it's always so cutesy, and like you can tell the composer's trying to make the audience laugh, which is a terrible idea. This movie actually has a very serious sounding score. It would work for any dramatic film. That's what I liked about it.
Wow.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Otherwise, what George Clooney and Julia Roberts? What are you doing? This is such a waste of your time, waste of our time. Clooney especially, so crazy talented. What are you doing here? Julia Roberts, pretty talented.
I would rather watch One Fine Day and My Best Friend's Wedding back to back than
make it a double
ever
feature.
watch this movie again.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Both of those films work.
I think I give this half a star.
Wow, well, I gotta say, one of my dear friends, Aaron Medeiros, is a talented movie critic, lives on Maui. He lives for romantic comedies. Pretty Woman is like his number 2 favorite film of all time. He hated this film.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like, you didn't like Ticket to Paradise? And then I saw it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
It's bad.
This doesn't work.
I was excited to see it just because why not? And then we watched it and I was like, yeah, that was a waste of time.
But if you believe the box office, this film has saved the rom-com genre. So, yeah,
So
thanks.
does that mean we have more of these
More
awesome
generic,
scripts
stupid,
to look forward to?
You know what? Here's the thing. Like, and I'll say this really quickly. It's not so much that, because I was saying earlier, I think that Judd Apatow movies have kind of repositioned these movies. You know what? You know where they make these films all the time? The Hallmark Channel.
Yeah.
This is a Hallmark Channel movie. Yeah. Instead of being set in like a little rustic, little woodsy mountain town, it's set in Bali / Australia.
Yeah. It probably would be better on the Hallmark Channel, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's a complete fairy tale, There's probably American girls going on international trips all the time, hoping to meet someone like G'day, who's going to sweep them off their feet with his, I don't know, amazing lifestyle and seaweed farm.
Skills. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they can say goodbye to like never having to work in the corporate world again. But it's like, no, this is a fantasy.
It's such a fantasy for young girls. Like, I'm going to show my parents, that I'm right. I'm going to marry this guy. I'm going to live here, and they're going to pay for everything. It's such a fantasy. And by the way, that was another thing I said while we were watching it. This movie would be great if it was a Parent Trap situation where G'day and Lily were doing all of this just to get their parents back together. Yes.
Yeah.
That would have made sense. Because like these characters are just like, they're so hollow and thin. It's like if the motivation was they're all like putting on this act just to get them together. But
you have given like multiple ideas that would have made better movies than what we saw.
Well, most of the ideas I have make the film a horror film, of course.
Well, yeah.
But
I like the Parent Trap idea.
That's an obvious one. Because otherwise, like, what are we doing here? Like, it doesn't make any. Because the parents are right. They should not be together. There's nothing about. There's no chemistry to this couple. There's no reason for them to be together than the fact that they're young and beautiful and they're in a beautiful place. But it's frivolous.
Frivolous. All right. So you gave your alternative ending and your star rating. Do you have any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't like this genre. I really am resistant to most romantic comedies, but there are good ones. I'll say quickly my all-time, I think I've said this one before, my all-time favorite romantic comedy, although I don't know if it would be considered that because it's a little of a prickly movie, but Nancy Savoca wrote and directed a film called Dogfight. It's with River Phoenix and Lily Taylor. It came out in 1991. It's a little tougher than most romantic comedies, but it's also funnier and beautiful, and it's a perfect film. I watch that film probably every February. I love that movie. And then another one, it's considered un-PC. It's a little unpolitically correct, but the movie was designed that way. It's always been that way, which is Kevin Smith's third film, Chasing Amy. That's also a romantic comedy I really love because it's not so much about how people end up happily ever after. And then, as I said, if you're looking for just a great love story that, again, doesn't fall on the rules of being cute and sweet and fairy tale like Blue Valentine with Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams, these are all tougher films than most romantic comedies, but I'm just not interested in these bubbly, frivolous movies where it's inevitable these movie stars are going to end up together because it's on the poster.
And my recommendation is One Fine Day and My Best Friend's Wedding.
One Fine Day is a good film. And that movie, like, it was supposed to... What happened with that? It was supposed to be a summer of 1997 movie, but it tested so well, they just threw it into the Christmas season and it got lost and it bombed. But I don't know anybody who's seen it who doesn't love that film. And I know everybody involved in the movie loved it. Like, it's a special film. It's sweet. It does have an innocence that it earns.
Those characters are so annoyed with each other and like give each other these zingers, but there is a very real chemistry. and you don't know if they're going to end up together, but because it literally takes place in one day, but it's fun.
It has
And
a sophistication that
yeah,
works.
and it's sweet.
Yeah.
So movies that are better than this one. All right.
Two tickets to paradise. Yeah, we're done. Thank you for listening.
We're done. All right. And that was our discussion of Ticket to Paradise.
Good night, everyone.